how height impacts your success. Shout out to Memeable Data. I like this channel a lot. I'm definitely gonna give them a lot of credit. They make great videos, nice, animated. Takes a lot of work to make these videos. If they have one person on the team, 3, 5, 2, 10, 20, shout out to them, okay? Let's go.
In 2020, Joe Biden became US president. He's 1.83 meters, or 6 foot. 4 years later, he was succeeded by Donald Trump, who's 1.90, or 6 foot 3. Abraham Lincoln himself was 1.93, or 6 foot 4. These were all tall presidents. If we look at the height of all the US presidents over the years, we see two things. First, most of them were taller than the average male height at the time. And secondly, it seems that their heights have been going up over the years. Why are US presidents so tall? And why are their heights getting bigger? Do you need to be tall to become successful? I looked at the scientific research on how your height impacts your life. And I investigated how height predicts your sports performance, your health, your dating life, and your career. I'm gonna use 2 short characters and 2 tall characters to show how they're impacted by height in these 4 areas. But what exactly is a short or tall person? People come in many different sizes. In the US, doors are 2.03 meters tall. Let's see how people from different countries fit through these doors. The country with the shortest women is Guatemala, with an average female height of 1.51 meters.
Okay.
But that's just the average height. There are shorter women in Guatemala and around the world. For example, Simone Biles, an American who's the most decorated gymnast in history, is 1.42 meters tall. As for men, Timor-Leste has the shortest average height at 1.60 meters.
That's average?
US,
wow.
The average height is 1.61 for women and 1.75 for men.
Okay.
The tallest country in the world is the Netherlands, with an average of 1.70 for women and 1.84 for men. Roughly 1 in every 5 Gen Z Dutch men are at least 1.90 meters.
Damn. Wow. 1 out of every 5 is 6'3", and that's average? Huh.
NBA players are 2 meters tall on average. And Zach Edey, the tallest active NBA player, is 2.24 meters tall. If you want to check the average height of your country, you can pause the video now and check the table on screen. I also asked my audience about their heights. It turns out they're 1.67 and 1.79 meters tall on average for women and men respectively, assuming we only include the adults. For characters, I'm going to use the nationalities of the shortest and tallest countries, and I'm going to give them typical names. Willem, Willemijn, Manuel, and Maria. To highlight the difference in height, I'm going to assume Maria and Willem are a bit shorter and taller than their country's average.
Okay.
So, who has an advantage? Let's start with sports. As you can imagine, it helps to be tall if you want to make it to the NBA. But being short can be an advantage for other sports.
Right.
As you get bigger, the physics of your body change.
Yep.
Some features of your body grow proportionally as you get taller. If you're 20% taller, your reach is about 20% longer, which is helpful in basketball.
Yes.
But other features are different. Because our bodies have complicated shapes to model mathematically, it's easier to explain it with cubes. Take these 2 concrete blocks. One is twice as long as the other. Blocks of concrete can withstand more force if they're bigger, and the strength of the block is directly proportional to its cross-sectional area. If the cube on the right is 2 times longer, then its cross-sectional area is 4 times larger. The area of a cube grows to the power of 2 relative to the length, making the second cube 4 times stronger. The same principle applies to our bodies. In theory, if
them South Americans hella short and all look alike, male and females.
Willem is 20% taller than Manuel, then his strength could potentially be 44% bigger, although the real number depends on other factors. As a result, in sports where raw strength matters, being tall helps. That includes sports where you throw things like javelin throw, and fighting sports. In boxing, strength and reach matters so much that athletes are divided based on weight classes. A short fighter would have a hard time beating a well-trained, larger fighter.
And that's what... Damn! You just got knocked the fuck out! Okay, that's why there's weight classes in boxing. in UFC, jiu-jitsu, all of that. There's, yeah, wrestling, it's weight classes. Because it'd be completely unfair for me to wrestle with my strength, 6'3", 200 pounds, to wrestle somebody who's in the same grade as me, they are 5'10", 160 pounds. Not saying they could be strong. They could. What's more probable? What are you willing to bet on? The one who's 6'3" with the longer wingspan, who we are assuming has skill because he's fighting, right? Or wrestling, or, versus somebody who's 5'9", 5'10". You know what I'm saying? Because now, I would love to see Memeable Data make a video about heart. Now, that's a video I'd have a lot more to say about. And I'm 6'3". Doctor said I was only going to be 5'10". Doctor told myself and my brother that we only going to be 5'10". Because our dad is 5'10". What the fuck type of sense that make? So that's also, now biology and genealogy is different for sure. But that's, to me, that's similar to saying that because my dad has heart disease, because my family has high blood pressure, a history of diabetes and whatnot, then I'm going to have it. No. This thing that's on our shoulders, it's, man, if there was a class to learn how to train your brain, how to strengthen your brain and know when your brain becomes weak, what things to avoid if you want your brain to be stronger, oh my goodness. I'm going to tell you, there would be a whole lot of more helping hands than helping pockets in this world. Word up. There'd be a whole lot of that. Doctor said I'd be taller. I mean, you still growing, bro. What said?
What happened?
You still growing, son.
You've been out for days. We were not sure you were going to make it. What happened? You suffered a severe lack of problem-solving skills. You're going to need Brilliant.org, the sponsor of this video.
What the Cheez-Its? Alright.
And you also in volume, so does its weight. Weight and volume increase to the power of 3 relative to the length. A cube that is 2 times longer has 8 times more volume and weight. That means that, although taller people tend to have greater strength in absolute terms, their strength relative to their body weight is lower.
Right.
That's important for sports where you have to lift your body weight, like
exactly.
climbing. Your linear momentum, which describes the force required to slow down an object, also grows to the power of 3. But the strength of the muscles used to stop your movement only grows to the power of 2. If you're tall, it's harder to stop your motion, but also harder for other people to stop you, which is useful in sports like American football.
Right.
As you get bigger,
that's why football players start weightlifting and strength training whenever they're freaking 10. Bodybuilders, they start working out when they're 9.
your rotational momentum increases to the power of 4, and your rotational inertia increases to the power of 5. Rotational momentum and rotational inertia are complicated words to describe how hard it is to speed up or slow down the rotation of an object. Shorter people tend to be able to change their rotation speeds
quicker,
faster, giving them an important advantage in sports like gymnastics, which probably explains why Simone Biles is so short. So while taller athletes have an advantage in reach and raw strength, shorter athletes tend to be quicker, more agile, and strong for their size.
And what does this say, y'all? There is pros and cons to every single level of life. It don't matter what you have. It matters how well you are willing and able to use what you have. That's what's important, son. That's what's important. Because what this video is explaining, y'all, and we're 6.5 minutes in, is perception. And we talk about it all the time. Dudes, we think when we're younger, we think that the taller, The more facial hair, the quicker you grow facial hair, the taller you are, makes you more or less of a man. Oh yeah, he's the tallest in our class. Oh, Jaden's the shortest. Oh, dog is the second tallest. Like, we think that amounts to our ability to be masculine, our ability to be a man, which is not true at all. Which is not true at all. That's like the most mundane, lowest level of measuring who and what you are as a man, as a young boy. You know what I'm saying? So all of this is about perspective and perception. Because giving y'all the story, I used to think that I had to be, no exaggeration, I had to be 6'7" to go to the NBA. To fulfill my basketball dreams, I had to be 6'7". It wasn't 6'6", it wasn't 6'5", it was 6'7". Why was it 6'7"? I don't know, maybe because I was watching too much goddamn LeBron. Too much KD. But at the same token, that's what I thought. I wasn't watching AI like that. I wasn't watching, Damian Lillard. I wasn't watching guards like that in the beginning. Because who's the most popular? The tallest, biggest. Oh my gosh. We get shocked. We get stunned. Like, oh my gosh, he's so tall. Like, oh my goodness. And not to make this about race, but why do you think they still do it, right? But why do you think a lot of white people, they look at a tall black man and they be like, oh, you had to play something. Like, you play basketball? Excuse me? Like J. Cole say, bitch, you're so tall. What team do you play for? No, bitch, I'm a doctor. No, bitch, I'm a doctor. I'm a surgeon. I'm a librarian. I'm a principal. I'm a psychologist. So they associate that, oh, you're so tall, and they begin to like idolize that. They begin to, romanticize, like, oh my goodness, he's so tall. Like, yes, bro, he's, just such a great, entertainer, such a great man. Look. So this all it's about.
What
really.
about our health? Is it healthy to be tall? A study looked at the heights and health of male conscripts in rural Spain and found that for the men born between 1835 and 1869, tall men were living almost 80 years longer than short men. Why were short men dying younger? Is being short unhealthy? This is a trick question. Your height depends on two things: your genetics and your environment. And that especially includes...
Nah, that environment part is real. Because I'm going to tell y'all something too. I'm going to show y'all examples so y'all know I ain't capping. Yo. I don't care what nobody say. From a basketball player, from a hoopist, like basketball was everything to me. And I played every sport. You can't tell me nothing. I played every sport for more than 4 years. More than 5 years, really. Every sport. I swam. I did tennis. I did soccer. I did baseball. I did cross country. I didn't do track, but cross country, right? Basketball, everything, 5 years. This book right here was literally a staple in my brain. If anybody has ever seen this book, read this book, for all my dads, moms out there, if y'all gave this book to y'all son, y'all nephew or something, even the girls out there, bro, this book changed my perspective. So every time I thought about my height, I thought back to this book. I read this book again. Because in this book, it was said to believe when Michael Jordan, his mama would put salt in his shoes, that would give him superpowers, that would make him taller. Yo, I'm gonna tell y'all something so weird, but it's so true. You can stretch a certain way. You can do X amount of stretches that will elongate your ligaments and will elongate your body. That'll make you taller, even if you're quote unquote not supposed to. No cap. Think it's magic all you want. No cap. And guess what? I've been telling people I'm 6'3". I got the other third of my height from my mama's side. My Meemaw is 6 foot. Her brothers were 6'6", 6'7". Her nephew was 6'5". So y'all, if I'm around trees, I will soon be one. Got me done. If I'm around trees, I will soon be one. But it's a certain mental fortitude and a mental power that you have to really tap into this. But this book right here, environment, bro.
Includes your nutrition and diseases during childhood. In Western societies, it's estimated that these environmental factors account for about 20% of the variation in heights, and that in lower income countries the number is probably even higher. Our heights reflect our living standards. These shorter Spanish men were not dying earlier because they were short, they were dying earlier because they had worse health and living conditions. If we look at the average male heights per country and plot them against the Human Development Index, which measures the quality of life of countries, we see that countries with a higher Human Development Index tend to have taller people. And if we plot the height against childhood mortality, we get the opposite correlation. Disease during childhood can limit growth, and countries with a higher child mortality rate tend to have shorter
Wow, because it ages the body. It tears the body down. Y'all ever seen somebody who is depressed and they're under the age of 25, under the age of 30? They look down. Everything about their aura, everything about them as a person, it's down. It's hunched. It's not upright. It's not elongated. It's not confident. It's not sprouted. It's hunched. It's shameful. It's avoidant. Y'all notice that? Wow. Disease wears down the body. And if you don't know how to stop the diseases, it will wear and tear on your body and you will age quicker. That's why I never accept anything like, oh, you 20-something, oh, you old, or man, I'm getting old. Shit. The more you say it, is the more that seed grows in your brain and you start to feel it. Think, see, feel. The more you think old, you will feel old. The more you feel old, you will see oldness. You will see old age. Come on, man.
people.
I ain't going.
As living standards increased around the world, so did our heights. In the space of 100 years, the world average height increased about 8 centimeters for women and 9 centimeters for men. So, health tends to increase height. But how does height impact your health? Tall people tend to have harder falls. If you drop a very small cube of stone on the floor, it will most likely bounce off the ground. If you drop a very large cube of stone, it will probably break. The impact of your fall increases to the power of 4 relative to the height. That would be fine if there would be enough surface area to dissipate the impact, but your surface area only increases to the power of 2. If Willem hits the ground, he will suffer an impact with a concentration of energy 2 times bigger than Maria's. And that's assuming the impact is evenly distributed by the body. If the impact is concentrated on a small area, let's say the corner of a curb, then the impact could be almost 4 times bigger.
Ooh!
Therefore, shorter people tend to have a lower risk of injury during falls and car accidents. The torque generated when you bend over increases to the power of 4 relative to your height, but the counter torque generated by your muscles only increases to the power of 3. As a result, taller people tend to have more back problems. And due to the proportions of heart muscles relatively to your body weight, tall people also tend to have a lower heart rate, which is a risk reduction factor for cardiovascular diseases. And because of their body mass to surface area ratios, it's easier for tall people to stay warm in the cold, but that also puts them at a higher risk of heat stroke. There are both pros and cons for being short or tall.
That's all.
And if we look at the research on life expectancy, we find mixed results. However, some research indicates that taller people are more likely to get cancer, and in the end, it seems that shorter people have a slightly longer life expectancy. Now, how does height impact your dating life?
Uh-oh.
This chart shows the height of U.S. men measured by doctors in physical exams.
We might end off
the
on
average
this.
U.S.
Like
male
just
height in 2023 was about 1.75 meters or 5'9". But if we compare this line with the height self-reported by U.S. men, something interesting happens. Firstly, the distribution is skewed to the right. On average, men exaggerated their height to 2.4 centimeters or about 1 inch taller than their actual height. Secondly, when we get to the 5'11" mark, we get a dip followed by a bump at 6 foot, suggesting that many men who are just below 6 foot add an inch to their height. There may be some truth behind the memes, although women also exaggerated their heights by 1.7 centimeters. It seems people do exaggerate their height, especially men. But do women really prefer taller men? The papers I found do seem to indicate that. It seems that women prefer taller partners and men prefer shorter partners, with this preference being stronger for women. However,
and in that part, it's like this whole world becomes disproportionate. The tall dudes want the shortest girls because it feels as if it's, some like domineering, dominance thing. Tall men want the short girls. Short girls want the tall men. The tall girls get what? If the short girls are taking the tall men. And the tall girls, because of confidence, self-esteem, they don't want to be with a short guy. So then the short guys got to go for the tall girls, and the tall girls got to go for the... Ain't that crazy?
These papers also indicate that, firstly, people prefer heights that are somewhat similar to their own heights. So Maria would probably be more likely to be interested in someone with Manuel's height rather than Willem's. And secondly, this paper suggested there were no differences in how often short men went on dates compared to tall men. So, although shorter men and taller women do seem to face some challenges in the dating world, the effect of height is, quote, modest and just one of many factors that impact attraction. And how does height impact your career?
We'll finish this.
Was height important for these men to become US presidents? We've seen how height is impacted by your nutrition and health. Since your socioeconomic situation impacts these two, it impacts your height as well. People from privileged socioeconomic backgrounds are more likely to be tall, and height has been used as an indicator of wealth inequality. For example, another study that looked at Spanish conscripts between the 1870s and year 1930 found that highly qualified non-manual workers were on average 3.6 centimeters taller than agricultural workers. So, when we see a positive correlation between height and career success, we have to keep in mind that it could also be explained
why
by
did you allow that?
taller people who may have had access to better education, nutrition, and healthcare in childhood. Having said this, even when researchers adjust the data for these factors, they find some advantages favoring taller people. It seems taller people are perceived as more competent, employable, and healthy.
That's true.
They are seen as more leader-like, and they tend to have a higher self-esteem and social esteem.
That's true.
On the other hand, some research suggests that being very tall or very short does not have a big impact on how other people perceive you. I left out some details of the research to keep the video light, but in short, there is some evidence of bias favoring taller people in careers. Does this mean you can't be a CEO if you're short, or a rock climber if you're tall?
Hell no.
Fortunately, you can. There are pros and cons to every height. Although it is true there are some biases favoring taller people in the workplace, height is just one of many variables that predict success. There are countless examples of high-achieving professionals who are shorter than average, and even in sports, where size arguably matters more, there are examples of shorter people overperforming in basketball and tall people overperforming in rock climbing.
Rock climber.
Thank you for watching. If you like Stories Told with Data, consider leaving a like and subscribing.
W video, man. I like this channel, y'all. W channel here, man. W channel.